The Immersion Foundation presents deep conversation with ambassadors on the cutting edge of combative arts as part of a greater mission to revive the study of haploology through research, expeditions, and archival projects around the world. The Immersion Foundation combines rigorous academic research with hands-on immersion in the combative arts and elite performance training, forging a new path of growth, adventure, and contribution.
All right, Sifu Chris, it's been a little bit of a break due to my own shortcomings, but here we are back again and ready to kind of rock and roll. So we were exploring the central principle of getting into the water, and we left it halfway through and hoping to kickstart that again, kick it into action, so to speak. So with that, why don't I just hand it to you, and then we'll go from there.
Well, absolutely. Well, again, we'll talk back and forth about this. So we went through some of the first ones, again, about getting into the water. You can't stand on the side of the pool. You've got to get in if you want to learn how to swim. So again, kicking into action is that the prime requisite for anything in life is action, right? And if you look at the words like actualize, self-actualize, action, they all have the word act in them. So kicking into action is just simply that. It's about taking some form of action. So so when it comes to JKD, or from a martial art perspective, right? Bruce Lee broke martial art actions, down into 5 different ways, right? Single direct or simple direct attack, attack by combination, progressive indirect attack, attack by drawing, and then hand immobilization attack, right? Okay, but we want to move past just that. So the best thing is to simply look at the first 2. And by that I mean that there's 2 primary types of action: simple actions and compound actions. So a simple action is just that. It's one action, whether it's to land a hit, a kick, to achieve a particular goal of closing the distance. You go straight for it. There's no beating around the bush, no winding around. You just go. So whatever it is you want to do, it is one single action. Get this job. Okay. Achieve that goal. Good. That's it. Compound actions are a sequence of actions that flow from one to the next in an organic sequence in order to reach a particular goal. So, for example, you have to go to elementary school, then middle school, then high school, and then college. You can't just jump from elementary school to college, correct? Okay. So in the same way, a compound action in a martial art perspective is that whether it's combined with feints or they're all real actions. So again, take for example, a high lead straight to a low rear straight to the body to a high lead hook. The actions are designed to move from one to the next with the final action or goal in mind, to hit the person with that hook or to take them out. So they all go together. Each one flows from the next. And I like to use the term an organic, natural sequence. It doesn't go one way and then suddenly goes a complete different way and then suddenly comes back to this way. It moves from A to B, finishing up at C. So, like I said, each one moves you forward. When you're using a compound attack, I think or compound action, while what the intended goal or the objective is, one of the most important things is to be fully present in each of those actions as you are doing it. You know, when you're throwing that first punch, or you know what your goal is with that last shot, whether it's to open up the lines, the first two are to open up the lines, to land that last shot. All three of them are designed to hit them. You know what they're for. But the idea is when you're throwing that lead straight, be with that lead straight. Don't be with the hook already. So when I'm teaching and talking to students, sometimes it's be fully present with each motion as you are going through, or each action as you are going through that action. So again, therefore you have simple actions, compound actions. Okay. So when it comes to choosing an action, right? Again, be it a physical action for martial arts, be it something that you're trying to achieve in your life. It's a psychophysical process is the term that is used. In that it involves the mind and the body, right? Okay. So it's kind of like a 3-stage process, if you will. The first is it's mental. It's to survey. It is a mental activity. That is when you look at the situation, the goal, the obstacle, the challenge, what it is, and you gather information. Again, you're facing an opponent. You're trying to gather information about this opponent, his movement styles, his speed, things like that. So you're surveying what this whole thing is. As I said, you're gathering data, you're gathering information. The second phase, or the next stage, if you will, is decision. And what that, again, this is a mental thing. And what it's based upon is that you look at all of that data that you have gathered, your reconnaissance, your thoughts, everything, your observations, and then you make a decision based upon that. And then the third stage is that you act upon it. And that's where you kick into action. So, again, we go back to this idea. You don't just jump in there wholeheartedly without knowing what the opponent is, having some idea about the opponent. As they say, there's this thing that when the tiger enters the arena, right, in the gladiatorial arena, it doesn't just, oh look, bang, charges its prey. Yeah, that's exactly it. It goes in, yeah, it circles. It sees what's good. It's surveying, and it's making its decision, and it's moving. And so again, it's a very simple process, and it can be done incredibly quick. This is not some long drawn out process, which is why when we talked in one of the other podcasts about using reconnaissance movements, right, feints and false attacks or whatever, to see and be able to read the opponent. So again, you survey, you decide, and then you act on it. So
that relationship forming is critical to develop a feel.
Yes, exactly. When we're dealing with action and kicking into action, because again, that is the title of this section, right? One of the biggest issues or that people deal with is overcoming the inertia, getting the engine started, getting the wheels rolling, getting off the couch and getting your gym bag and going to the gym and working out. Once you're there, a lot of times it's very easy, but again, it's getting the engine primed, getting it moving, getting the wheels rolling. And again, the only way that you can overcome the inertia is by taking action. And so maybe it's very small. Maybe you do something really small that gets you started, but then it continues and it continues. So, action requires overcoming an inertia, right? And then once that momentum is going, is then keeping that momentum going, right? Okay. Another thing that's involved is that you've got to, if you're taking any action, that action should be action with intention, purposeful action, purposeful movement. Again, when I'm explaining to my students about footwork or footwork and body movement, everything should have a purpose, a reason for your doing it. You're not simply doing it for the sake of doing it, even if it's to like a reconnaissance move, right? It has a purpose. You have intention while you are doing it. So, when you act with intention. When you live your life with intention, right? Okay. The next thing, and again, all of these things interrelate. So, for example, right. You've got to overcome the inertia, and then you've got to act with intention. And then, in JKD, we use this term emotional content, and everybody remembers the Bruce Lee scene in Enter the Dragon, and it's actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie when you really understand the whole basis for it. But that thing about we need emotional content. Any action you take, it's an involvement of the self, a full involvement of the self. When you're kicking, you want to be in there with that kick. You fully invested yourself in that kick. I'm not talking about where if anything else happens, right? You can't change. I'm simply talking about the fact that, man, I want to be in there with that punch. Or when I throw that punch, I have my intention, but I'm gonna be with that punch, so to speak, right? So whatever you do, invest whatever that action is with emotional content. Another thing of relating to action, or again, another thing relating to kicking into action or taking action is hitting through the target, not stopping at the target, not stopping when you hit that focus glove, not stopping when you hit that kicking shield. And it will relate to the one that follows it, but hitting through the target, they talk about penetration and striking, but hitting through the target is when you're doing something. Let's say you're making a product, right? Okay, that you go further than just stopping at the making of that product to give the people that buy it, to give the customers a superior performance, something like that, right? So, whatever you do, make sure you go that step further, if you will, right? Take it beyond just reaching the goal. Oh, let's go beyond the goal. What sounds similar, but it's not quite the same thing, is when we use the term utilize proper follow through, right? Because people sometimes mistake that and they think that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about hitting through the target. But I'm not. Utilizing proper follow through is simply following through on your actions. So
second and third intentions.
Yes, they've got in full intention. You've got emotional content and you're hitting through the target. But maintaining proper follow through is continuing after that. Again, I relate sometimes, especially a lot of beginners, the moment they finish a technique or an action, they shut their energy off, and then bam, they either get counter hit or something happens. So I'm always stressing to the students, don't shut your energy off. When you finish a kick, when you finish a punching combination, don't shut that light switch off. Sometimes it's so clear when you're watching somebody train or work out, or a student, they're all ready before, they're ready to go, and then bang, 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 and then as soon as that last punch hits, click. It's just like a light switch goes off, and they just shut down. And again, be it anything. I learned working in the stunt business from Jeff Amata that sometimes the time when that stunt finishes is a very, very possible time that things can go wrong. So maintain your awareness while you're doing that. So again, that's the prime thing is shit, I forgot what I was saying for a minute there. Anyway, yes.
Yeah.
Simply follow through on your action until it leads you to your next action, or until it achieves its objective, right? Okay. Bang. And then the final thing regarding action is that you take action, but you have to be willing and able to adjust or switch actions if the situation or the circumstances require that. You might be taking this particular action, but it's not going. So I have to be willing to shift my action and move to somewhere else or going another direction. And so those are the fundamental ideas behind kicking into action,
Yeah. I think that takes us, we've already touched upon like taking it onto the floor and to set the sight on the target. But if those sub principles, if you will, if you want to touch upon those, but I think we've already touched, but I would love for you to touch upon that and expand if necessary.
Well, one of the other sub principles, and I always use that term, it's a very old term, but damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, right? What that means, basically, it's an all-out, balls to the wall, total release of energy in whatever that you're doing. You go for it. I've read that top big wave surfers, or maybe not even big wave surfers, but surfers talk about when you drop in on a wave, when you have to go for it. Because when you drop in on that wave, if you do not go for it, you will get crushed by it. See? So this is the thing. It is a total release of energy. What that can also relate to is that analogy of learning the art of dying, which again, Bruce Lee put into that Longstreet television show when he's training that blind investigator, and the guy has to fight a bully, and he knows he's got to fight him the next day, and Bruce gives him this whole idea about the art of dying, right? Well, the art of dying isn't about, I want to go out there and die. That's a pretty silly idea. It simply means that you have to let go of fear of failure, fear of not being able to do something well. You have to be able to let go of worrying about doing something, anxiety, being anxious about doing something, having doubt. You've got to detach yourself or let yourself go from that in order to be able to focus or concentrate all of your energy on that particular thing that you're doing. I think that's why that idea of the samurai. The samurai has to lose all grip on life in order to save their life, because there was that idea that if their mind has the tiniest piece of attempting to save their life, that will be a gap, and that's when they can lose their life. They can be killed. So again, damn the torpedoes is just when you go for it. And I think it's in Bruce's notes about the only thing worse than a slow jab is a half-hearted jab. It's tepid, it's lukewarm, it's going out there. When you have the opening, as it says, you let the thing fly, everything behind it. Again, full intention of purpose, full investment of self. So that's the idea of just damn the torpedoes, man. Both go for it. You know. So
I think that's the difference that makes the difference when we really think about it, and between that full-hearted engagement and half-assed movement.
Yeah. You can have an individual from a martial art perspective. A martial artist can have all of the techniques in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can have all of the speed, they can have power and everything. But if they are not willing to step forward and engage totally, if needs be, right? Then having all those techniques in the world doesn't really mean that much, And again, if one looks at the animal kingdom, when you see two tigers or two lions come together and there's that stuff, they don't sit there and go and start jabbing each other with their paws and trying to feint each other. What happens? They're moving with each other, right? And then, bam! It is just all out, both 100%. Yeah. So that's the thing, give it 100% while you're doing it. Whatever you're doing, give it 100%. I never really cared for the term, I'm giving 110%.
You can't, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the reason is simply because of that. If 100% is complete and total, then again, so I've never really used that term myself. It's just, whatever it is you're doing, give 100% of whatever it is, So, you're going to kick into action, like we said. You're going to do all of these things, and then when it comes to any action, the idea is to strive for excellence, right? In whatever you're doing, strive for excellence. Bruce Lee strove for excellence in martial arts, in making films. So whatever it is that you're doing, martial art, writing, music, computer, do everything you can to be the very best that you can be in the highest level of quality. So this is again about learning to say no to mediocrity, and mediocrity has become so pervasive in the world today. When I look at it, it doesn't mean there's not excellence. There's great, but it just seems in so many things it's okay to be just okay. And go ahead, yeah.
No, I think society in general almost shames you for pursuing excellence, and that particular intensity and that particular passion that you bring. I think it scares most people, but I think that is the piece that separates you from the crowd. And if you're looking to go on that path of excellence, you have to take that.
I agree 100%. The word mediocre basically just means average, right?
Yes.
And average is the herd.
Yes.
And to strive for excellence, you've got to, just what you said, you've got to move away from the herd, right? The
Yes.
second thing is that excellence demands effort. It doesn't come easy, you know. Some people may achieve certain things easier than others, right? But excellence demands effort. You know, the that analogy of, you know, that home run baseball hit that you see in the park that looks almost effortless is a result of thousands and thousands of repetitions and effort put out to that, right? You know, um, so when it comes to um, striving for excellence, you know, you've got to take responsibility. You know, you've got to be committed to what it is that you want to do. You know, you've got to pay close attention to the details of it, right? And then also, if you're striving for excellence, you don't compromise. You know, you go. And the final thing I think is that it's very important to strive. Striving for excellence is one thing. Striving for perfection is something else. And it's perfection. Quite honestly, it's an illusion. You know. So one strives for excellence in what one does, but one does not have to be perfect or strive for perfection, because then I think that can be perfection. I think can be the enemy of action. You know, because
You won't start.
Yes, yeah, you won't start. You won't start because things aren't perfect. Or again, we're back to that. You know, I don't think I can do it perfectly. Therefore, I'm not going to do it until I can. Well, you'll never get it done. You know? So yeah. So again, I think striving for excellence, you do this, but you go for it, and you just strive to be the very best that you can be at whatever you're doing. That's the fundamental thing, you know. Um, and then I think the final thing is that when you're kicking into action, when you're taking action, is you have to learn to trust your gut, right? Um, and trusting your gut is about listening to your intuition, right? And the basic definition of intuition, if you will, is knowing without knowing why. You know something, but you may not be able to explain it.
Yeah.
You know, intuition is a form of intelligence that's been given to all of us to some degree. It's in our DNA. So many times we've been simply taught to override it, and especially when it comes to personal protection and personal safety and things like that. So, you know, trusting your gut is listening to your intuition, knowing why without knowing why. Okay, there is no single way that intuition works. You know, it's not, oh well, it always comes like this. No, no, no. Sometimes it's a hunch that you get, right? You know, you just I know this. I know this. Sometimes it
Yeah.
might be an image in your mind. You know, oh yeah, that's it. Boom, it just pops in, right? It might be an observation. You might see something, and all of a sudden, bang, your intuition kicks in and goes, oh yeah, that's it. You know? Or again, it might be this tiny little voice just sitting back just on the outskirts of your consciousness or your awareness, and it just sends you a message. And so intuition sends you a signal, right? But it doesn't send you emails about it and things like that, right? So an important part of learning to trust your gut is to learn to recognize the signal that is being sent. You know, and to do that, sometimes you've got to just pause, stop, pause, breathe and listen to it, and then be open to it. Don't override your intuition. Listen to it. Listen to it. Intuition is not something that you can't demand it. You cannot demand your intuition. It kind of reminds me of that that analogy about the more you chase it, the more difficult it is to catch or to grab a hold of. But when you just step back and stop, it comes and sits beside you. That idea. So I think that's like I said, when intuition speaks, learn how to listen, and then trust your gut. So those are the final elements. Mm-hmm.
I have a question because I kind of struggle to explain this myself. Maybe you can help me.
Mm-hmm.
Is the distinction between listening to your monkey mind and your intuition, especially when you're in the midst of, let's just say, an engagement.
Right.
Because, fear, doubts, all these things come up.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're truly honest with ourselves, sometimes if you're facing someone superior than us, it kicks into high gear, right?
Oh yeah.
So then how does one make the distinction between, hey, this is my monkey mind, my fears, my biases kicking in and just saying, hey, don't do this shit, Mahi, you're gonna die.
Right.
Or is it truly my intuition?
It's
You
almost
know what I
like
mean?
it's almost like you're talking about that reptilian brain type of thing, right? Is it that? I think that intuition plays a less of a role in those type of situations. Intuition might relate to, like you said, you observe this person and you get a glimpse of them or something. But when you're in the midst of it, there's not going to be time to listen to your intuition unless you're in the midst of it and then you back out of it. Because we're back to that thing about you are now in a stress situation. You're on autopilot, right?
Yes.
So you're not going to have time to do that, So because you've the idea in your training is to switch from volition to reflex action.
Yes.
So I think that intuition plays less of a role.
Reinforced. Yeah.
Yeah. In those kind of situations. It could, again, as I said, it could be a very clear precursor. Your intuition is telling you, don't get into a fight with this person because of whatever it's telling you, because I think he's got a weapon. I can't see it, but my gut instinct is telling me like I do not want to engage with this person. This person is trying to engage with me, but my gut is telling me move away because it's telling me that he has a hidden weapon. That's more of an intuitive thing. Once it's on, man.
Yes. I guess the reason I'm asking this question is sometimes, like, especially if you're playing with somebody absolutely new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your body suddenly does something that it doesn't normally do. And it's not necessarily, say, a trained reflex action,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Where, say strike comes, I block that, and then I don't know why, but my hands just moved here because, boom, I've covered that line as well.
Right.
Now, would you call that intuition? Would you call that reflex?
I actually call it the know-how of action. And by that, I mean that you've learned all of this material, you learn these generalized movements, right? It's become all of that cumulative knowledge and experience has become a part of you. So you can't explain why. Yeah, that's a great that's a great thing, because sometimes you'll ask somebody, well, they've either landed, excuse me, they've either landed some shot, they've done some amazing thing. Why did you do that? They can't tell you why.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't know. They know, but they don't know. That's that thing. That is the know-how of action, and that is the repetitions, the growth. So it's there, but like you said, they're there. And then because of all of that training, they just put their hand there. But if you were to ask them, so why did you do that? They wouldn't be able to say. They'd probably just say, I don't know, I just did it, right?
Yeah, that was the reason for my question, because it's like I never thought about it as the know-how and that it being integrated. But I'm like, hey, is that my intuition that kicked in, that covered that line, if you will,
Right.
or something else?
I personally think it's something else. Like I said, I think it is the. I mean, somebody could say, well, you just said that intuition is knowing why or knowing without knowing why.
Of course.
So
it's not about the semantics game.
Yeah. But again, it's like you're in this movement, especially when we're talking about movements, martial arts, sticks, swords, fight. You're in a state of movement. You're in a flowing state, if you will, right? And that flowing state is adapting, and for example, that when you do that outside deflection, all of the potentials that could come off of that, right? Mm-hmm. But you also know that one of the most major potentials that comes off of that is that.
Yeah.
So it becomes instinctive to bang, but you don't overdo it. See, I think that's vital, because you go just far enough. You don't automatically jump way over there, right?
Yeah, and you're open all the time.
Yeah. So again, we're back to awareness, observational skills. Perhaps it's when you did that, you saw a movement in, if it's a stick, you saw a movement in this person's hand. I mean, just a glimpse. You call it this micro glimpse. Yeah. And the know-how of action took over. Bang. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that's so intriguing about martial arts, and that makes it so enjoyable. And I think we talked about this before, is that doing things, martial art, whatever, not just because, I want to be able to kick ass, I want to be able to fight, it's movement, it's relationship, and it's so cool to do it. I think we said that before. Have you ever thrown a side kick? Not because, I have to throw a side kick, but because it's just too cool not to throw a side kick.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. I think that's an integral part of what we do. If it was just all about bang, 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 again, we're back to that. That's like holding up one frame of film and saying, well, this is the entire movie.
Yeah.
So, yep. So
one last question on this particular principle. I'm just curious about your perspective on it. We've talked about being intellectually bound and physically bound, right? Mm-hmm. And kicking into action requires you being able to go in either and or both, depending on wherever you are clamped, right?
Right.
From your experience, what prevents people from actually getting into the water? Because I think a lot of people mistake typing stuff away on Facebook as being the same thing as actually doing those 3 rounds or running that half a mile, whatever it is, So I'm just curious, what prevents from what you've seen, what prevents them from being that bound, A? And two, what has something worked? Have you found a pattern or a system that worked that helps you get into the water? Because yes, getting into the water is key, but how the hell do you get them into the water?
Well, again, I think there is no set way,
Mm-hmm.
right, of getting
Yes.
people into the water. Some people, like when my parents had a swimming pool, and it was a non-heated swimming pool. So through the winter it would get cold. This was in California, right, in the valley.
Yeah.
And in the summer it would start to warm up, but it took a while for it to get to warm up. Okay, well, you can go stand on that diving board forever and a day.
I'll just
You
jump.
can dip your toe in, or once you bounce off of that diving board, again, there's no going back. That's that overcoming the inertia. When I used to body surf every day in Santa Monica, you go down and you look at the waves, but that water is going to be cold. No,
Yes.
it's survival. I mean, it's good. You can spend hours out there, but when you first hit it, it's going to be cold. So you just go, oh well, to use the Filipino term, bahala na, man, and you just run
Yes.
with your fins, and you run and you run and you run until you hit that first wave that you can dive through, and gosh, you get hit by that cold water, and then everything's cool. Some people are not comfortable with it. Some people
Yes.
have to go into the pool one step at a time. So this is what I'm saying. It's there is no set way. You can't say to everybody, you got to just jump in. That
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's finding out what works for that person, and maybe that person who initially has to work their way in moves to the point where they just go and jump off the diving board, or dive through the wave. The intellectually bound and the physically bound, again, as you said, there are people who love to talk about the theories of JKD, and the this of JKD, and that, but you still have to do it. You you still have to do it. To another one of my favorite quotes is, to intellectualize on something is fine, but can you manifest it? Because manifestation is where it's at. So, intellectually bound, yeah, they want to talk about it all the time. Well, if I give you this angle and it comes in at this particular way, and then you move your stick at this angle, or the opponent's punch is coming at me, and the idea is to slip your head to a 37-degree angle and make sure, and then what happens is like, poof, bang, oh, yeah. And then the physically bound are, again, they're the ones that only want to do that. I just want to do that. I just want to do that. Those are again extremes. But the getting into the water is an individual thing. As we said, there is no other way. There is no other way. And so to use an analogy too. Okay, jumping off the diving board, good. Okay, coming down the stairs, good. Or the problem is this: if you don't know how to swim very well, or you're a very poor swimmer, then jumping off that diving board into the 10-foot section might not be such a good idea. You might want to get into the 3-foot section first, and then swim there and get comfortable. And you're right. I mean, it's such a natural thing, when you go to that ocean. Again, the ocean plays no favorites. It doesn't think about you. So knowing yourself and saying, man, I got to work up to moving out to those larger waves that are outside and things like that. You can't just say, oh man, you just got to go for that huge wave that's coming in.
That's how you die.
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, so there are no absolutes. There are no absolutes in this art. There are no absolutes in life. And now we're back to the using no way as way.
That's the way.
Yeah. Don't box it in. Don't, this is the way you've got to do it. It may not work for that person,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think too, though, is that's what makes it so interesting. And that's part of what I love is the learning to read people and work with them and not having to go in and, okay, I have to
This is
teach
the set way.
this. Yeah.
I think the crux for me, the crux of it is having that laser sharp focus on why you're doing what you're doing. And I don't think that can be given. You either have it or you don't. Could be wrong, but that's what I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And until you don't have that, you're not going to be able to get into the water. So
yeah, again, it's we can look at it different ways. You might get into the water, and if I use analogy of relating to sparring, right, as getting into the water, and the sparring, that's the 12-foot section, and well, maybe they need to get in the 3 or 4-foot section first.
Yes.
So maybe they can get into the water and they spar, but they spar in a very
Light
controlled,
yes.
very good way. Using specific tools. For example, you could take two individuals. You could teach them how to throw a lead straight and a lead back fist, for example, right, and a low lead straight, and how to work a cross parry, and how to work either a low parry or forearm deflection. You could teach them just that, and you could have them put the gloves on and light spar. Now they're still in the water, but they're just in like the 3-foot section. But at least they're in the water. If they just stayed working a drill back and forth with each other, no, because now they're in the shallow water, but each one's trying to land that punch, and it's very, like I said, it's very safe and secure. Nobody's going to get hurt, but now the aspect of the uncertainty. I've got to try and score on them, but at the same time, they're going to try and score on me. So I've got to make sure I work my parry. So again, a person could build that up, versus just throwing them in the deep end.
Yes.
No, like I said, no. I think it's how one chooses to approach teaching it or working with somebody or helping them develop. You've got to develop them for themselves. You can't develop them with the idea of what you think they should be. And again, I think that's a teaching issue that some people, I'm going to go and I'm going to make them like that. You can't. You can.
Navy SEALs. Yes.
Yeah. That's right. The fact that you do the Navy SEALs workout video or DVD doesn't make you a Navy SEAL. These people are ultra professional, and again, they didn't start by going in. You can't go into the recruitment office and say, "Oh, I want to be a Navy SEAL," and next week you're going to Coronado or wherever it is. You have to go through stages of development before you're even allowed to apply to it. So again, I think it's just the approach to it.
Stay engaged. One step at a time.
And again, this is one of the things when one is constantly looking at how to teach, how to communicate, to various types of people, things like that. That's what I love about it so much.
I think that covers it. Any closing thoughts on this particular mega principle?
I don't necessarily think so. I think it just goes back to what we were talking about, is getting into the water is about experiencing whatever you're doing, be it JKD, be it life, be it that, and that it's JKD, life, they're not spectator sports. You have to actively participate in them, and participating in them is getting into the water. And you can, like I said before, is you can stand in your driveway all you want and watch life pass you by on the street, but that's all you're ever going to do, right? You've got to go out and do it. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Seafood Chris. I think this pretty much
All right.
covers this particular principle. So thank
All
you.
right, man. Always pleasure, always fun.
Yes,
Enjoyable. Good.
it is, and educational. So thank you for that.
Okay. And